Welcome to the Painting of the Week podcast, where we look at some of the most significant paintings throughout history. Introducing your hosts, Phil Grabsky and Laura Bentham.
I've got bits of notes everywhere, Phil, today.
Good, because here we are.
We're on.
Welcome to this week's Painting of the Week. And you're...
I'm Laura.
And I'm Phil. Today, we're looking at a painting that Laura's chosen and can talk a little bit about, which is by Bridget Riley, British... still alive, isn't she?
She is.
British
1931 she was born.
British contemporary artist. And the piece is called?
Uneasy Centre.
Uneasy Centre.
And it was done in 1963.
1963 when I was born. But more to the point, when she was 31 or 32.
I think actually I love Bridget Riley, but I think you chose the painting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I think that will become clear later.
All right, I did have a reason for choosing it,
exactly,
right, which we'll talk about.
Yeah. But the good news with Bridget Riley is I've been to one of her exhibitions in Birmingham in 2010.
All right, tell me about Bridget Riley. I don't know too much about Bridget Riley.
She was born in London and she spent most of her childhood in Cornwall.
Okay.
During the war and things like that. Which is where she wasn't really, obviously just as a child. And she said, but a lot of her influence comes from the light and looking at the scenery in Cornwall. But then...
She part of the St. Ives group? Is that where she went?
I don't know. That I didn't see.
Okay.
But she did go to Goldsmiths.
Yeah.
And then she went to the Royal Academy.
Both in London.
Yeah. Yeah. And her early days were classical trained. And she loved, Impressionists, Monet, Matisse. And then she found Seurat. And that was the turning point, I believe, for her, with which I'm sure you know. No,
but this is okay. Interesting. So this is an interesting moment for those of you who are not already looking at it. If you have the possibility, if you're not, listening to this on a jog or something,
we say this every time.
Well, but go to the Seventh Art Productions website, so seventh-art.com, and go to the Painting of the Week podcast. Watch out, because I also write Painting of the Week blogs from time to time. So this obviously is the podcast, and then look at the picture. And then you just heard a little bit about her background and, being influenced by Monet and Manet and then Matisse and Seurat. And then look at this picture. That's quite a journey. Anyway, so... Well,
the Seurat was the Pointillism.
Right.
Do you know about him?
Yes.
Good. So pleased. I knew you would. That was her major influence, was him.
Seurat is, I think it's extraordinary what he... So Pointillism is basically little points of colour.
Yeah.
And if you've ever... It's a bit less so these days. In the old days, if you looked really, really closely at a television screen, you just see little points of colour. But as you move further and further away, of course, that congeals, if that's the right word, but it forms into a recognisable image. TV actually red, green, blue. Those are the three colours, and from that, all images were created. Well, anyway, the Pointillists took that a stage further, whereby they would use these points of colour, really, really detailed. And if you stood at a certain distance from the painting, it revealed itself as a river scene, for example. Yeah. And you can see this at the National Gallery in London and plenty of other galleries. It's extraordinarily clever. I find myself being amazed by the technique of it and not necessarily being that moved emotionally by it. It's almost a bit over-engineered in some ways. The ideal painting, and I had this recently looking at some Caravaggios, is one that genuinely moves you. I don't think Pointillism genuinely moves me, but it was certainly an interesting period. And again, it's that we talked about this the other day. The Impressionists were all different individuals they're all exploring art in slightly different ways, but they all, well, not all of them, but many of them, most of them got slightly frustrated with Impressionism and then started to move into other directions. And Seurat was one of those. So yeah, so he's working with dots of colour, which, when seen from, 2 meters maybe, form themselves into a recognisable, more than that, painting.
Was he the main one that...
He's the most famous one.
That, okay.
I mean, Pissarro, we're currently making a film about Pissarro. He explored it too.
Okay.
And of course, you take this, if you keep pushing this idea, then you actually end up at its most extreme with a canvas which is just one colour. Right. But before that, you might end up with people like Mondrian, who was working in blocks of colour, Rothko working in blocks of colour. Now, there'll come a point, and of course this point happened for the conservative art lover in the mid-19th century, that they thought the Impressionists had already gone too far. They wanted something which was, they were only just about beginning to understand this term, but in our eyes was photographic.
Right, yeah.
So, what impressed them about a Titian or a Leonardo or a Vermeer is that, or a Rembrandt, well, not so much Rembrandt, is that it's as close to reality, on the surface level, it's as close to reality as possible. You get to the Impressionists, on one level, of course, it's not realistic, it's not a photograph, but it is realistic in the sense that you know what the scene is, and it's conveying the narrative and the storyline and the emotion of that scene. But for some people, it felt like, there's one famous comment, the guy said, I don't want to see skies the colour of melted butter or something like that. But it was, what did we just see the other day where it was, the trees were purple? Who was that? Oh, Gauguin. Oh yeah, in our film that's just coming out now, Danish Collector, we talk about Gauguin, and he does this very beautiful painting actually, but he's got 4 tree trunks. They're all purple. Well, you don't really, when do you see a purple tree trunk? But you buy
Disney.
Exactly. So then there comes a point where, how far can you go along this line of something becoming less and less realistic? And then so you get to Van Gogh. There's nothing realistic about Van Gogh.
No.
If you saw somebody sitting in a chair like in a Van Gogh painting, if you saw them in real life, you'd call an ambulance, wouldn't you? But in the painting, you totally buy into it. And then it goes further. So you start with Matisse. End of his life, he's doing cutouts in blocks of colour. But those blocks of colour create swimming pools or create gardens, or and as I say, you keep pushing it, you end up with a black canvas or a white canvas or a blue canvas.
I think and that's kind of where she went, I think.
So back to Bridget
We'd
Riley.
love to have her in and have an interview with her. But I think it was early 60s, and she did The Kiss, 1961, and it was just down to 2, black and white. And she did many, many paintings.
So what does The Kiss, I don't know, what's The Kiss look like?
It's quite difficult to explain, but I'll do my best. It's black. It's got about a third of the way up. There's a white line, and then a semicircle comes across it. So as you move across the painting, it moves. Okay. And that's, I believe, where she must have really got started with her movements of the black and white paintings.
If you didn't have the name caption on the wall next to the painting, would you have any idea what it was?
No.
No.
But I think that's what she did with her. I have actually looked at her now, because I think that's what she did with a lot of her titles. She didn't make them too clear, because every single person that looks at one of her pieces is going to see something different. Yeah. In actual fact, it's almost like when you go into her exhibition, because everyone's tall or short or, in different, just completely different, looking at it from a different angle in every way. The paintings are different for everybody. They're really, really clever. And they definitely make your eyes go all over the place. as in with Uneasy Centre.
The one we're talking
about today.
Yeah.
We were already talking about it, weren't we? Do you see the circles coming out? Do you see the circles going in?
Yeah.
So, but that's and her titles are the same. I mean, if you saw that painting, you go, kiss? I don't know. Where the black meets the white, or where the black meets the black line, I don't know. So it's all about the movement.
And is she part of the quote unquote swinging 60s?
Well, I would have 100% thought so.
Yeah.
Because those black and white movement in squares is her most famous one, and where she makes the little tiny squares go small in the middle.
So
the mirror is so clever.
So I have seen artworks, or sometimes they're not even called artworks really, but where when you look at something, it has an optical impact on your brain, and you get the brain that struggles to compute exactly what it's looking at. Is that what she's engaged in?
Yeah.
She's engaged in, I mean, she's deliberately trying to kind of trick you?
No, I think she's just trying to get you to look at things slightly completely differently.
Right.
Because when you're looking at one of the other paintings that we've looked at, you pretty much know what we're looking at. Girl with a pearl earring.
Yeah.
Is a girl with a pearl earring.
Yeah.
So, but with Bridget Riley, it's up to you what you're looking at, really.
Yeah.
So she has given them titles. The other one that's quite similar to Uneasy Centre is Blaze, really similar.
Yeah.
It's all got sort of zigzag lines. But your eyes do go, they definitely go funny. Well, mine do. Everyone does, I'm sure. So, yeah.
So when you look at Uneasy Centre, which we're not.
We're not even looking at it. So, I've got a cup of tea. We've completely gone off piste.
So let's. But when you look at Uneasy Centre, what do you?
I really love it.
What does it make you think of?
Well, initially my eyes go funny, and then you just feel like you're being sucked into the painting.
Yeah.
It's a tunnel. Same for you?
Yeah, for me, it's like a wormhole, isn't it? And I guess it also reminds me. Well, now, I'm not sure would have reminded me. I'm not sure what I thought at the time. But now it reminds me of, Star Trek and Star Wars, and those kind of where they shoot, warp factor, however high they go, max.
Oh yes.
And they go through the universe. And
yes.
Black holes.
Yeah. And it's spinning around.
I mean, the way in which the eye can be tricked really fascinates me. There's a wonderful example where this guy does these chalk drawings on the floor.
Right.
But you would not step on them because it looks like you're falling. He's done different ones. He's done one where I think it was like over a cliff edge.
Yeah.
And it's a pavement. Actually, this wasn't a pavement. I think this was in a store. Anyway, wherever it was, that there's a floor and it's chalk.
Yeah.
But you would not step on it because your brain's saying, no, that's a cliff edge. And I think we forget the brain is a kind of trained instrument, and sometimes it just overrides, that battle between consciousness and subconsciousness. What you learned in the past and what you're learning in the moment. And sometimes they don't all compute. So you look at that Uneasy Centre, it's flat.
Yeah.
It must be, it's a flat image. There's nothing. And yet you are utterly convinced that there's depth there.
That's like you were at her exhibition. Everyone's kind of standing and moving around. Probably not like any other exhibition you may go to. I don't know.
So what was this known as then? I mean, what was she?
Opt art.
Well, why opt?
So I looked it up. Opt art was the term first used, Time magazine, 1964.
Okay, so straight after her.
A blend of optical and pop art.
Mm-hmm.
And then from then on.
So optical art.
Making your eyes look at things differently, I'm assuming.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
And did she continue in this vein?
She did black and white for a long, long time. And then she did start to come with colours. And actually, I bet you many people stand in some of her exhibitions, because a lot of them are just lines of colours, different ways. And you're like, oh, anyone can do that. You know how people do. And we've all done it. We have. I'm sure I've been in an exhibition and gone, oh, I reckon I can do
It does
that.
feel, though, I mean, again, it's us looking back. And of course, the image we get of a period is filtered through films and television, and the cliches get repeated. But you do feel that this kind of exhibition would be, you know, like Uneasy Centre would be white walls.
Yeah.
And you'd have Twiggy and John Paul, you know.
Mary Quant.
And they'd probably be dressed in black and white. And, you know, it all feels of a one, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That there was a moment of re-examining, being bold, and even being in black and white feels bold. And yet it also for us kind of works, because some of that imagery is, you know, a lot of that imagery is black and white.
When you look at her colour paintings, that she merges them in such a way that they do then turn into different colours. And, they're really something. I've watched a couple of now little documentaries about her watching her work, where she's just cutting out tiny pieces of paper and fixing them next to some colours and, you know, moving them around. And you say all the time, nothing's for everything's for a reason. So
I do say that quite a lot. I mean, I do know some of her later kind of coloured works, and
do you like them, Phil?
They remind me of kind of kids' blankets.
Yeah.
And I can't see that, like in some of them where they are just kind of blocks of diagonal colour or horizontal colour, I don't quite see where it goes, where it moves beyond the random.
Right.
So, you know, she's just, I can't, if there is something there about why the reds and the oranges and the whites and the purples and the blues are kind of in that order, I can't quite see it. I can't, in a way, but again, and because it's interesting rather than particularly moving, those kind of black and white works that she did where with wavy lines or black and white squares disappearing into the distance are kind of more interesting, because you think, wow, how did you do that?
Yeah, okay. So you prefer the black and white ones to the colour?
Yeah.
I love the black and white, but I love the colour because obviously I've gone back to my quilts again.
Well, that was what I was thinking. To me, there's such a clear connection to some art, it's like a Tracy Emin and her quilts, and Howard Hodgkin, of course.
Yes.
We looked at before.
Yeah.
You can see a connection.
Yeah. I've actually got a quilt, funnily enough, that I have been doing for about 5 years, which is all sort of coloured triangles. And I still haven't finished it because I'm so into it now that there's a couple I just can't, every time I put them together, they're wrong to me. So I do understand that with colours. I'm like, no, it doesn't look right. Still can't finish it.
Well, I mean,
so
there is that sense. I have it in making films where sometimes we'll say, well, why did you cut that shot to that shot? And sometimes there isn't really an articulate answer. It just feels right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure with her, with the colours, it just feels right, and you take from it what it has an impact upon you, and it doesn't, or it doesn't. She's almost giving up control in some ways. An artist like Caravaggio, he is trying to communicate with you. He's trying to tell you certain things. He's trying to move you in a certain direction. I think with the kind of work that Bridget Riley is doing, it's kind of different. It's like she's encouraging a response, but she's not really in control of what that response is.
So the black and white ones, you get more of a physical. Do you think you get more of a physical movement? Whereas the coloured ones, the colours change for you?
I'm not an expert on Bridget Riley.
Oh, well, neither am I.
but the black and white ones to me are impressive in the sense of that's really clever, and
yeah,
it really, she's completely smashed the idea of a two-dimensional flat plane. I'm kind of questioning my own, my eyes and my brain and what I'm looking at. The colour one feels more an exploration and an enjoyment of colour.
Yeah.
Without any necessary, of course now, I don't know, I mean, it almost feels like, some of her works feel like wrapping paper that you buy for Christmas presents. And it's more common now.
Yeah. Actually, didn't Paul Smith do a whole load of colours? Didn't he do a thing of colours? I think that was one of his things he did for a long, long time. I
once bought a shirt from Paul Smith.
Have you got one? With the colours?
Where it was all straight lines of colour,
yeah.
In fact, I never thought about it. In fact,
I bet it
could easily have been based on Bridget Riley.
Now I think about it, my friend used to buy all of that. She used to love those colours. So you need to get your Paul Smith shirt out.
I wonder if I don't know if I'm still doing it.
I hope you have. Really good. But she definitely, her work's massive. The exhibition was brilliant, and it had a good energy. That's how I felt about that exhibition. If you took the kids in, which we did, and it was fun for the children. They enjoyed it, and they whizzed around. And I'm sure she would have loved that, because as an artist, you want to see young people enjoying your work.
Interesting, wouldn't it? Whether if you did a film, I think you could make a great film about it, but would people come? One, not knowing her name so well, perhaps compared to a Van Gogh or a Rembrandt, and two, you'd obviously choose the poster image quite carefully, as we always do, but would it be enough to get people in?
I don't really know, because it's
I'm sure we could do a good film.
Well, then would it make all your eyes go funny when you're watching it? So, because when you're making a film about Caravaggio, what sort of movement are you getting? Are you getting that where the eyes follow you around the room? Like in some old films? I don't know.
No, Caravaggio is it hits you in the face straight away because it's so powerful. But then what the film is pointing out is you need to look.
Yeah. And
look quite hard. And some of it is on the basis of having a knowledge of Christian iconography. And some of it is, even if you don't know if you don't know who St. Andrew is or who St. Francis is, or in some ways it also doesn't matter. One thing I do know about Bridget Riley, funnily enough, is that she is born in Norwood. And only yesterday, I was doing some reading about Pissarro, Camille Pissarro, who's the father of Impressionism. He came to London, and he lived in Norwood for a while.
Brilliant.
So
2 connections there.
Anyone who lives in Norwood?
Yeah.
got a fantastic artistic. But now, so here's a connection.
Yeah, come on. So why you picked the painting?
So,
or are we not on that yet?
Yeah, no, we are right there. So I'm trying to think, because this is to do with playing a record, and that record player was in my bedroom in Ealing. So I am maybe 14 or 15 years old. And this was a record released in 1970. It could have been mine. I'll have to look through my record collection, or it could have been my brother's. It's by a rock band. Some might even call them a heavy metal band. I'm not sure that's the right term, actually. Black Sabbath. Now, some of those listening may not know the music of Black Sabbath, and some certainly will. Ozzy Osbourne was the lead singer, and, they sang about Iron Men and losing my mind and,
Sounds like a normal day at the office.
witchcraft, and it's all very heavy. But I remember putting this vinyl disc on, and again, it was interesting. I was talking to my nephew the other day and explaining to him what a vinyl disc was.
Yeah.
And that you would drop it on the front of the disc, and basically it would then play, let's say, 4 or 5 tracks, and 20 minutes later you'd have to turn it over and play the other. And in some ways it was great, because speaking as somebody who loves narrative, some of these albums, they thought, well, many of these albums, they thought very hard about what the first track was going to be, and the second, and third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and then the turnover, and then the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, and the 10th.
Yeah.
Some, of course, were Pink Floyd or Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or some of them actually, The Who famously, they would be stories. It would go from track to track, and you couldn't change the order because there was actually telling a narrative.
Yes.
I mean, Pink Floyd famously with The Wall. And of course, what happens these days, either people just listening to tracks, or they buy the CD, and I'm not sure people do that so much anymore, maybe, but or automatically. I mean, I've done it. I've loaded CDs onto my Mac, and then I thought, I don't like tracks 2, 8, 9, and I'll delete those. I'll never listen to them again.
No. Or see what they do now. People do now is put everything on shuffle.
Everything
and I mean,
shuffle,
if you think about it, would always know the next track that was coming.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
Because we listened to the album right the way through.
And that would be a bit like going to the National Gallery and the paintings are on shuffle. And that would throw up some interesting connections. But actually, the other day I went, and you go into the I don't know, French 19th century or the Dutch 16th century, and actually you can see. In fact, I went to look at a Caravaggio, and alongside either side of this particular Caravaggio were 2 Zurbarans, who's a Spanish painter. And, they put that deliberately because you could see this guy painting in 1638, only 3 decades after, 28 years after Caravaggio died. He's copying it. He's just copying Caravaggio. Okay. On shuffle, you wouldn't get that. On shuffle, next to the Caravaggio would be anything. Well,
I'd be in a right old mess, wouldn't I?
And so I
didn't have a clue what was going on.
See, I like context. I think context is great. Anyway, this vinyl disc.
Yes, let's get back to it. Vertigo. Which do you think was Vertigo?
Vertigo was the name of the album, and I remember again buying. So normally the vinyl disc was black. And then you'd have the central sticker, and normally just said the name of the album. But people started to experiment a bit, and over the next few years, I remember buying, a white vinyl. I think it was the Tubes, or it was the Tubes. And I think in the garage I've got one which is blue vinyl. But this one was really interesting by Black Sabbath because this image,
Uneasy Centre.
Uneasy Centre is essentially the image that's in the middle of the album. Now, the reason I remember this, because I can distinctly remember, like 10 years old, putting this album on, standing over the record player and watching it go around. Yeah. And it's playing tricks with my mind, with my eyes. Because now, it would be really interesting to know whether I should try and find the album, whether they credit Bridget Riley or whether Bridget Riley ever said anything. I mean, it's 7 years later. They've changed it.
Yes, it is different.
It's not quite the same.
No.
But it's essentially the same.
Yeah.
It's concentric circles with a kind of that sense of going into a hole. And as it goes round, it's really strange, the effect it has on your eyes. It's kind of revolving and sucking you in, and it's very, very clever.
I actually now think, with Uneasy Centre, wouldn't it be great if she had the painting on the wall in the gallery, and then next to it, a copy even, that is revolving?
Yeah.
Because this one, her one is a complete... Obviously, then you just have different patterns and things happening all over the place.
Well, I mean...
But going back to children, if they had that in a gallery and they were able to spin them,
Yeah.
oh, they would love that.
Which is a really interesting way of presenting some art, because normally art's in the frame and it's in a certain, landscape shape, shall we say, and it's got often a pretty heavy frame, and it's got light, and you don't get near it, and you whisper, as you said the other day.
Yeah.
So having art which you revolved,
it'd be really good fun.
Spun.
They would love that, wouldn't they?
What a great idea! Like there are some artworks where you turn the lights on and off, and of course where we get to, which and I really enjoy these kind of things, installation art.
Yes,
where in a sense you're walking through the artwork. There, I always read that's if I was going to be an artist, I would do installation artworks where you walk into a room, and I would take you into different rooms. And it'd be experiential, and I think that would be fabulous fun.
But in a way, you do that with your documentaries because you have to work them all out. You can't.
You're trying to.
Yeah.
And that's
you can't
why
just start off, like you say at the beginning, with the best thing that you think the best thing is.
That's why the cinema is the best place to see a film, because you are disengaged from the world. You've turned your phone off. The lights are low.
Yeah.
And so I can really, I've got much more chance of drawing you into the film than I would ever do at home.
No, yeah.
I mean, even last night, to give you an example, we started to watch a new series, which somebody had early in the evening and said, you must watch this, you must watch this. We turned it on, and obviously the first few minutes are really important.
Yeah.
The exposition is really important. And there were three of us watching it, and within 3 minutes, two of the three were on looking at their phone. Now, to be fair to one of the three, one of them was already confused by the narrative and was looking it up, and the other one was looking up the name of the actor. But I mean, whatever the legitimacy of that, you've disengaged.
Yes, absolutely. I would have been heading for the chocolate biscuits.
You're in the chocolate biscuits. And in fact, I think I had my hand in some licorice sauce.
Oh, there we go.
So I mean, you're not. So all the work that the filmmaker's done to create soundscape and every word of the narrative and every bit of the mise en scène is also carefully.
So you must feel very sorry for people like that. You realise how much work they've put into that.
That's why, go to the cinema.
Yes.
Anyway, definitely one for people to look at. Her work is definitely worth looking at. I think she's fascinating in terms of where she comes in the history of art, who's influenced her, who she then influences, and even if even a rock band. And I think we were chatting, weren't we, that I think Black Sabbath actually did acknowledge their interest in optical art subsequently. So I mean, it's not. You might think a rock band, they've got no interest in art, but they clearly did. Yeah.
Did you actually get to see them?
I did see Black Sabbath.
Were you at the front?
So I went to the Hammersmith Odeon.
Oh, right, excellent.
And I hope that nobody comes after me for this. This is another one of those confessions, but one of my mates realised, because it's like 3 or 4 of us would go, that the trick was one of you would buy the ticket.
Oh, yeah.
And then you'd go in, and then about 2 tracks into the support band, they'd sneak down the corridor to the exit and open the exit door.
Right.
And you could go and stand outside 4th exit door down the left, and then you'd sneak in and you'd run.
You definitely couldn't do that now.
Well, I think now you probably can't get around the sides. I got into a lot of concerts like that. David Bowie at Earls Court.
Fab.
So I went to see Black Sabbath, and they had a support band on that I'd never heard of called Van Halen, who actually were, whether you like their music or not, but they were unbelievable.
Yeah.
They were one of the best live bands I've ever seen. And I was just looking, I had a quick look through some of my records to see if I could find this one. I couldn't find it immediately, but I had a very eclectic. So, I mean, there's stuff in there of Linton Kwesi Johnson and dub music and classical music, and Nigerian King Sunny Ade. I mean, it's all and rock music, and I would listen to all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
But I did like rock concerts. They were just so over the top, and there's like a real humour about them. Like when I was like 78, 79, obviously in my school, you're either into rock or you're into kind of punk.
Yeah.
The thing about the punk, and then, there's some good tracks there, but it was kind of, there's no real humour there. It was all kind of like.
Well, might be a humour sometimes what we look like.
Yeah.
I was more of the Clash.
Clash were great.
And then I saw them at the Brixton Academy. I mean, if we're going to start talking about where we've been to bands, we're going to have to wrap this up pretty soon.
We are. The only thing I'd say about Black Sabbath.
We might have to do a podcast on music. That might be completely different.
But Black Sabbath do take the record as being the loudest concert ever. I mean, ridiculously loud. I mean, they had so many speakers.
Yes.
And but it was particularly interesting to me because I know the whole audience, I can't say the whole audience, but so many in the audience were like, who on earth were that for the support band?
Yeah. I love that when that happens.
And Black Sabbath were a really famous, top-ranking band, but everyone came out going, who were they? So it just goes to show, if you get the chance. They did a great thing, actually. I mean, they did loads of things, Van Halen. They were very clever. One of the things they do was the lead singer, a guy called Dave Lee Roth, he'd come on with a camera.
Yeah.
And he'd say, we're filming you tonight for the tour video. Go mad, go wild. I was like 17, 18, but I could see the bloody thing wasn't plugged in. It was like Top of the Pops when they, the miming. Yeah. But everyone went berserk. And I'm thinking to myself, it's not plugged. There's no cables.
Maybe you should do that in the cinema.
There's no cables.
When you come on and do a little Q&A, I'm filming you all tonight. Can you all look a little bit lively?
Yeah, ask some good questions.
Yes.
Good thinking.
Here we go.
Right, anyway.
Okay. It's all about movement.
Enjoy Bridget Riley and knock yourself out with optical art, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Painting of the Week podcast. For more information, please visit our website at seventh-art.com or contact us by emailing info@seventh-art.com. See you next time.